We're going to be putting together the two pieces that we've learned over the past 3 or 4 days. It'd be the ability to pull the information out of a rate problem and the ability to take that information and put it into a dimensional analysis multiplication to get out an answer. So this is kind of the bare bones of what's going to be asked for you to do on your test and on the CST. We're going to start to see some more complicated things as we move through this unit and see more complicated types of rate problems. Today we're just going to work with basic rate problems. Remember what I said during Do Now? A basic rate problem is something that has just one given rate and one situation. Okay? So in this question it says, to build a fence, Kevin needs 15 feet of lumber per foot. I see this word per. I'm going to underline it while I read because I know that's really important. To build a fence that is 220 feet of lumber, how long will the fence be? All right, so I'm going to box in my question because that's where I'm always going to start. And I'm going to write a complete answer sentence to that. How long will the fence be? The fence will be blank feet long. So now I'm going to go back to the problem. I recognize that word per, which suggests to me that this is going to be some type of rate problem. I'm going to put down rate here, and then I'm going to go back through and find my given information. So it says 15 feet of lumber, so that's the first part of my rate, 15 feet of lumber per foot of fence. So that's a little bit tricky there. So I've got 15 feet. And I need to be clear about what this 15 feet is of, because it looks like we're actually using feet for both of our units here. This is 15 feet of lumber for every 1 foot, foot being singular, of fence. And the other way I can write that is 1 foot of fence requires 15 feet of lumber. Okay, so that rate's a little bit tricky because it does use the same units on top and on bottom, but they're units of different things. So this is kind of more like a ratio problem than it is a rate. All right, the situation here is we're looking for trying to build a 210, or we've got 210 feet of lumber. So my situation is 210 feet of lumber. All right, so I'm looking again at my answer sentence, so I want to check the units of that. It says feet long, and I'm talking about, if I'm looking and rereading my question, I'm not talking about feet of lumber, I'm talking about feet of fence. So for my answer units, I want feet fence. I'm going to pick my rate that's going to match this. By match this, I mean if we want feet of fence on top, I need to pick one of these two rates. Please show me the fingers given rate number 1 or given rate number 2. Which one of these do I want to box in and use here? So I definitely want to match it up with my feet of fence. So I have 1 feet of fence. 1 foot of fence. Oops. Over our 15 feet of lumber. And if I want my units to work out correctly, that means I need to be able to cancel out this feet of lumber because that's not over here in my answer units. Good news is we have a situation that we can use to do that. 210 feet of lumber is our situation, which is good. We're trying to figure out more about that. We notice our units canceling out. We have 210 feet of lumber, cancels out with our feet of lumber down here. Now all we have to do is multiply and divide. 210 times 1 is 210, divided by nothing times 15, that's 15. So it's 210 divided by 15. So I'm going to come down and do that math down here. This goes in 1 time is 15. 6, bring down the 0. Goes in 4 times. Exactly. So the fence will be 14 feet long. Questions? It's really just combining the two things that we've done over the past 2 days. Yes, Mr. Matlock.
Say that you can you multiply, and if you have any question you have to multiply. Can you multiply the feet in a fraction or something, or divide in a fraction?
So remember, when we're dealing with these fractions, these tops over bottoms, it's always top times top, bottom times bottom. All right. Next one. Yes, sir. You're going to say what? Oh, yeah, we went back through this. This was a rate problem, and we saw that it was one rate and one situation, which makes this a basic rate. All right. All right, so a biker cycles 50 miles in 12 hours. How far can he cycle in 3 hours? So looking over here at my question. How far can he cycle in 3 hours? So he can cycle it says how far, so we're talking about distance here. Looks like our units of distance in this problem are miles. He can cycle blank miles. And when I'm looking at this, I'm going to look back through. I see this relationship. This word in is kind of a helper here on this one. It draws our relationship between our miles and our hours for us. So that tells us our rate is 50 miles for 12 hours. Or we could say in 12 hours, he can go 50 miles. Both mean the same thing. One may be more useful than the other. So the situation we're trying to find out more about is, Mr. Ross? Yeah, the miles that he has, but what do we know about that situation?
In 12 hours, it was 50 miles, 8 hours.
Yeah, so what we know about it is that he's going to be traveling for 3 hours. So that's the situation that we're trying to find out a little bit more about. So we're ready to set up our dimensional analysis. We always start with the, fill in the blank, we always start with the, of the units of the, we always start with 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 the units of the, all right. Hey, wake up, guys. All right. I know, you're on a sugar low right now because you probably ate about 1,000 pieces of candy last night. So we've got our miles on top. So we need to pick out one of our rates that's going to help us out with this. We need a match up. Please show me, are we using given rate number 1 or given rate number 2? Am I using given rate number 1 or given rate number 2 to match up with our miles? Okay, looks like all of you are showing me number 1. This is going to match up with our miles on top, so that gives us 50 miles over 12 hours. And in order to get those miles to be the only units left over, because I see I need miles be the only units left over, I need to do something to cancel out these hours. Good news is our situation is 3 hours. Everything matched up right here. We had one situation, one given rate, so this makes it a basic rate problem. The hours cancels out with the hours, leaving leftover units being miles. And our answer, that's supposed to be the leftover units. Top times top, 3 times 50 is 150. Bottom times bottom, nothing times 12 is 12. So we're looking at doing 150 divided by 12. Goes in 1 time. 3, bring down to 0. Goes in 2 times.
24.
It's 24. And we need a haunt the house, bring down to 0. 12 goes into 60 exactly 5 times. Decimal pops straight up, and we get 12.5 miles. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Instead of having to do 150 divided by 12, couldn't you cancel the 12 and 3 times 4 and divide 2 by 12?
Yep. So Andrea is thinking about doing some factoring beforehand, doing 4 times 3 and cross-canceling those there and getting 50 over 4, or even better, to simplify even further, we could do 25 times 2 and make that a 2 times 2, and it could cancel out. And we would have gotten 25 over 2, blah, blah, blah. Either way, it works. Whatever you decide, taking the wrong things away, right? Never mind. And we'll move on. All right, so the unit rate for Purdue turkey breast luncheon meat is $5 per pound. As I'm reading, I immediately recognize per as an important word. How much would 3.5 pounds cost? All right, so how much would it cost? It would cost units for cost. What are my units for cost? Dollars. Would cost some amount of dollars. In the problem, I did read this rate here. Rate per pound. So remember, when we're talking about a singular noun there, that means 1 pound. $5 for 1 pound. Or 1 pound is $5. As I'm looking through, the situation we're trying to find out more about is this 3.5 pounds. So my situation is 3.5 pounds. Looks like all my units are going to line up here. So we only have one rate and one situation, so this is a basic rate. Yes, sir?
Okay, so, like, if a word problem is easy to understand, we call that a basic rate.
So if it has one rate given to you and one situation and all the units are all good, then it's just a basic rate.
But say if they only give us one rate, will we call that a complicated rate?
If they gave us multiple rates, we're going to talk about what to call that later. All right. So looking at this, we need to get our dimensional analysis started. So we get our dimensional analysis started. We always start by looking at the units of the... We always get started by looking at the units of the...
Answers.
We always get started by looking at the units of the...
Answers.
All right. So unit of my answer I see over here is dollars, so I should have dollars over here. Then we want to match it up. We need to pick our rate. Show me 1 or 2. Which of these 2 rates do I want to use? Showing me 1 or 2. Which of these 2 rates do I want to use? Okay, so we're looking at the first one. That matches up our dollars on top. So we get $5 for 1 pound. Getting a little squeezed over here. We've got some extra units here that we don't want in our answer because I see our answer just has dollars on top. So we need to get rid of these pounds somehow. Lucky for us, we've got a situation that's in pounds, so 3.5 pounds. Pounds cancels out with pounds, leaving us with just the dollars. That's exactly what we want. Top times top is 3.5 times 5. I'm going to have to do that one out to the side.
17.5.
It's going to give me a 5, carry the 1, 15, carry the 2, 15 is 17.5. And bottom times bottom, oh, it's just ones down there, so we're all good. This is $17.5. All right. Any questions? Key points for today before you flip over. Isaiah.
Always tell your answer. Always start off with your answer units.
Always start with the answers units. Ooh, with the, that's not one word, Mr. Boots. It should be, though. Always start with the units of your answer. Andrea. What?
No, the other one.
So that was there, and it seemed to have disappeared earlier, so we're good.
Okay.
All right. Other key points. Mr. Ross.
Find the type of problem.
Find the type of problem. So pull all information from the problem.
Yes.
Actually, I do that first. Pull all info from problem first. Any other key points? All right. Flip on over to your